Starting out with solo role-playing games can feel incredibly overwhelming. At least it did for me. I started this hobby a few months ago and honestly, I struggled a lot. There are hundreds of games to choose from, and when I finally picked a game, there's so much to keep track of. I had to set the scene, role-play in it, make ability checks, consult the oracle, react to the result, and ideally, keep a clean journal. Since then, I've tried many different games and made some important changes that help me better ease into it. Welcome to I Roll Alone. My name is Daniel, and on this channel we explore the vast and exciting world of solo RPGs. Before we get to the list, I want to quickly mention two games that didn't make the cut: Shadowdark and Ironsworn. These games get recommended everywhere for solo play, and while I haven't personally played them, I have only heard great things about them. I feel it's important to explain myself so you understand the reasoning for the games that I did end up choosing. So, why did I exclude them? In the case of Shadowdark, it really comes down to the price tag. The physical copy of the core rulebook is about $60, which is a fair price, don't get me wrong, but also a steep investment when you're just testing the waters, so to speak. Where there's a free quick start, the real heart of its solo experience, I think, lies in the dozens of random tables in the full book. The PDF is cheaper, I know, but that brings me to the other reason I didn't choose it. And it's the same reason I didn't pick Ironsworn. While Ironsworn is a dedicated solo RPG and its core PDF is completely free, the rulebook is a dense 270 pages. As a beginner, I found that very intimidating. For this list, I specifically chose 5 games that are cheap or, even better, free and are more RPG light. The goal here is to get you playing, rolling dice, and feeling comfortable with the core experiences of playing solo RPGs. Because let's be honest, even though it's an amazing hobby, playing these games by yourself feels a little unusual at first. Of course, you should always start with whatever game excites you the most, because whether or not you enjoy any of these games also depends on your preferences. So with that out of the way, here are my top 5 solo RPGs for beginners. When I first started out, I imagined playing epic fantasy stories. Being a hero, slaying gods, the usual. Call of Cthulhu is the exact opposite of that. You play as a regular 1920s investigator thrown into a mysterious and otherworldly world. And if you aren't careful, you will die. A lot. But that's actually why it's good for beginners. Its realistic approach to your character's abilities makes it incredibly easy to get into. It also makes balancing less of an issue because, as you will learn very quickly, getting into a fight is usually a death sentence. If you are not familiar with Call of Cthulhu, it uses a D100 system where you need to roll under or equal to your ability score to succeed. For example, if you have the spot hidden ability at 40% and you want to find something, you need to roll a 40 or lower. If it is difficult, you need to roll a 20, and if it's extremely difficult, you need to roll a 10. And while the main game is for groups, there's a free introductory solo adventure called Alone Against the Flames. It's designed specifically to teach you the basic mechanics while playing the game. It works just like one of these choose-your-own-adventure books, where your choices and die rolls determine which paragraph you read next. Full disclosure, it isn't a very long adventure, but it's free, and I think it's a perfect introduction to solo play because it removes the narrative pressure. You just decide what you want to do, roll for it, and read on. I actually enjoyed it so much that I borrowed the rulebook from a friend and ordered one of the many solo adventures online. Unfortunately, they sent the wrong book. Now, if you like that guided experience but want something a bit more combat focused, I think you'll love the next game. The Reckoning is a lean, mean point crawler made by an indie publisher called Whiskey, Blood and Dust. And it's available as pay what you want online. Character creation takes less than a minute and then you are thrown right into the action. It uses a very unique D6 dice pool system where you assign each of your 4 core abilities between 2 and 5 D6 to a maximum of 12 dice that you can distribute. I hope that makes sense. Whenever the game calls for a skill check, you roll the whole pool of dice to meet a certain difficulty number. For example, you have 4d6 in your skill pool, and when you attack with a ranged weapon or try to hide, you roll all 4 dice to meet a certain number, for example 12. So if you're really good at something and have 4 dice, it's obviously more likely that you succeed than if you have, for example, 2 dice. Gameplay-wise, it guides you through 8 pre-written scenes in a brutal Wild West setting. Your goal is to hunt down and kill a bandit named Devil Henry Boone, who murdered your family and left you for dead. It's fast, fun, and incredibly deadly. In fact, I still haven't managed to beat it, but that's the dice's fault, not mine. What I love about these first 2 games is how they introduce the core concept of setting a scene, making a choice, and facing a consequence. This is fundamental to any RPG, but it's crucial for solo play, where you have to be both the player and the game master. Following a pre-made narrative is an excellent way to get used to that flow. There's also very little pressure to journal your story, which was one of the biggest challenges for me personally. I wanted to create a cool story, but I needed practice. And the next game on the list is perfect for that. Let's travel a bit further back in time to feudal Japan and the life of a wandering, masterless samurai. Ronin is another pay-what-you-want game that is incredibly simple to start. You create a character, roll up a background, and choose a weapon, and your journey begins. Ultimate goal is to defeat 3 villains, but who they are and why you're hunting them is something you discover as you play. Any action like charming someone or fighting, you roll 2d6, one for you, one for the opponent. You apply the appropriate bonuses, and that is it. The game has a very simple loop. You are either traveling on the road or you're in a town. For each location, you roll on an encounter table and might meet an ally, a potential ally, an enemy, or even one of your main villains. And here's why it's great for beginners. The game actively encourages you to connect these random events into a cohesive story. But because the number of encounters is very limited and follows a very similar pattern, it is not as overwhelming. Maybe you run into a bandit you defeated before, but now they want to be your ally. Maybe you meet 2 soldiers wearing the colors of the clan that betrayed your family. How do you react? It all depends on the story you're building. I found it incredibly engaging, but it got a little dark for me fairly quickly. So just be aware that that can happen. Now, these games are all great, but they are missing something essential that is very intertwined with the history of TTRPGs. What's the first thing you think of when you hear the word role-playing game? And I mean the nerdy kind. For many people, it's Dungeons and Dragons. After all, looting dungeons and fighting monsters are classic tropes for a reason. Now, playing D&D solo is definitely possible, but it's not very beginner-friendly if you ask me. A simple dungeon crawler, however, is. There are a few good ones to choose from, but I have been playing a game called 2d6 Dungeon. I originally chose this because the PDF was only $7.99 compared to more expensive options. The way it works is you create a hero, pick a weapon with a couple of special attacks, and head into a dungeon. Clear all 10 levels with the goal to become a legend. What's really cool about 2d6 Dungeon is that you generate and draw your own dungeon map as you explore it. You roll 2 6-sided dice to determine the layout of each room and what you find inside. Other than that, it's relatively simple. Enter a room, roll on a table to see what's there, fight monsters, and collect loot. Of course, there are additional mechanics, but that's the essence of it. So I think so far we have covered quite a lot of mechanics of solo RPGs, and I think now it's the time to engage with our creativity in a more narrative-focused game. But don't worry, the next game was literally designed for a 5-year-old. Tricube Tales was originally designed by a guy named Richard Woolcock to get his 5-year-old son to play TTRPGs. But because it became so popular in his regular group, he developed it further, created solo rules, and put it on the internet for $2 with the option to get it for free. Character creation is that simple. You choose a trait, either brawny, agile, or crafty, a perk, something that gives your character an edge, something they're really good at, or maybe a magic spell or a magic weapon, and you choose a quirk, something that gets in their way. The game itself is very narrative focused. You can pick one of the many 2-page settings for a couple of cents or for free. They range from urban horror to space opera to classic fantasy. There's probably something for everyone. You then roll up a mission and 2 subplots. And that's when the real work begins, because you have to come up with the scene or the scenes. What's great about this game in particular is that it helps you with that. It has suggestions for any of the missions you can roll up and uses a set of playing cards to give the scene some context. For example, you create the opening scene and then you pick up a card. You draw a 4 of diamonds, for example, which, according to the rule, introduces a hard, agile challenge. What that challenge is depends on you, your opening scene, and possibly your mission. You play out the scene for as long as you want, and then you draw the next card. The game is designed to end between 5 and 9 scenes, depending what kind of cards you draw. It introduces a random element. The real secret, I think, is not to overthink it and go with your gut. Playing this game will teach you one of 3 things, in my opinion. Creating mission-based adventures instead of large campaigns, to use your creativity to create a narrative, and depending on how many settings you try, you have the opportunity to try a genre that you are very unfamiliar with for basically free. So what's next? Honestly, I don't know. This is where I am on my own journey. I'm actively playing these games, and I think they are a fantastic way to build a solid foundation in this hobby. To find out what you like and don't like, and the rhythm of solo play. The next step is probably one of the larger games like Scarlet Heroes, Ironsworn, or Shadowdark. I haven't decided yet. I've been having a ton of fun making these videos, and if you want to follow along with me, discover new games, and see where this is going to go, feel free to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment sharing your own first steps into solo RPGs. See you next time.